Fractal Design has done it again, following up their enormously successful and highly praised Define R6 with the second iteration of their water cooling focused S series. This is the Fractal Design Define S2. There are a lot of similarities here between the R6 and the new S2, starting with the exterior appearance and measurements, which are actually exactly the same between the two cases. They both measure 543 by 233 by 465 millimeters, and this sits squarely within the ATX mid-tower size range. It's not bloated for the sake of being bloated, and in fact it actually feels smaller than it is because by far the biggest dimension is the length of the case and not the height or the width. Fractal has really nailed it when it comes to exterior size, translating into interior spaciousness, as even though you're not purchasing a big boy chassis, you get big boy interior room and features. And the motherboard tray can fit up to an eATX motherboard in here with no problem. Although, if you do, be aware that you'll likely lose access to the cable pass-through grommets as the motherboard will overlap them. The Define S2 will come in black, gunmetal, blackout, and this white version, and they'll all cost $149.99 at launch, which, if you're watching this on October 3rd, is actually today. I really like the implementation of the white coloring here, as Fractal has kept their trademark anodized aluminum brushed front panel look while whiting out basically the entire rest of the case here, including the fans. The S2 comes with 3 completely white Dynamic X2 GP14 fans, which are much higher quality than your standard stock black plastic case fans, but can't really compare to some premium offerings, even some from Fractal themselves who make the Venturi line. They move a decent amount of air and are relatively quiet, but if you're aiming for a high-end build, you'll probably want to replace them. Also included with the S2 is Fractal's new Nexus Plus PWM fan hub, which can handle 6 3-pin fans and 3 PWM connections. While there's no RGB controller integrated here, you'll also note there's no RGB lighting anywhere on the case itself, so that certainly makes sense, and having an additional 9 available fan headers makes cable routing much more convenient. Speaking of cable routing, let's take a look at the cable management rear compartment. With minimal effort, I've managed to create a super clean and functional setup here, as Fractal has included several Velcro ties and a huge amount of cable tie-down points. There's also just a cavern down under the PSU shroud that can be used for tucking away the excess. Back here we can also take a look at Fractal's new drive mounting solution. With the R6 you had the option of using a big chunk of the front compartment for drive mounting on horizontal sleds. While you can't mount quite as many HDDs back here, you still can populate up to 3 on these vertical brackets. In order to help you reach the top of these brackets with power, included in the box is this 3-way SATA splitter and extender. For more storage options, there are also 2 sleds fastened with thumb screws directly behind the motherboard in what has become a traditional and fairly familiar spot. One thing that has been deleted here is the availability of any potential optical drive mounting space. The front panel is not a door like on the R6. Instead, it's a solid panel which pulls off with fastening tabs holding it in place. The front panel is ventilated on both sides by that filtered grill right up there, and because the fan mounts are on the inside of the frame, there's actually plenty of room up here for airflow to be generated. At the bottom of the front panel, you have access to a full-length dust filter, and being able to pull it out from the front is much more convenient than having to turn your chassis all the way around and pull it out from the back, especially if you've positioned your desk up against the wall like many of us do. The top panel is basically identical to that on the Define R6, with what Fractal calls their 3rd generation Moduvent system. A single button at the back, right up here in the corner, pops open the top, and you can remove it and flip it over to expose the airflow side of things. Right now it's configured for silence, but the top panel can be separated and a filtered mesh panel can be installed back on the case in the same spot if you need more airflow. The reason you might need more airflow is if you're going to mount some fans or a giant ass radiator up here, up to 420 millimeters on the removable bracket. There's also a dedicated pre-drilled fill and drain port to help with your tubing runs. The front I/O is not only quite extensive, but also really well laid out with 2 USB 2, 2 USB 3, and 1 USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C port. The Type-C was an optional upgrade on the R6, and now it's standard here. The reason you might want the Define S2 over the Define R6, however, goes further than that standard USB Type-C. As I mentioned earlier, the S2 is more water cooling focused. Not that the R6 was a bad water cooling case, far from it actually, but the S2 comes with some handy features that really speak to custom builders. The rear motherboard tray wall has pre-drilled and slotted spaces for pump and reservoir mounting, and Fractal even includes 2 reservoir mounting brackets to help line things up better. The full-length beveled edge PSU shroud not only looks great, but because there are no drive cages below it, the entire bottom compartment is usable space for running soft tubes, stuffing excess cabling, or mounting a separate pump down there if you want. You can remove this giant panel at the front to give you basically unlimited fan and radiator thickness clearance, meaning push-pull with a 60 mil rad is actually a thing you can do, something that can't be said even of some monster full ATX towers. The case panels also carry over from the Define R6 and are straight up some of the best in the business. The fastening mechanism on the side is straightforward, simple, secure, and doesn't require any hardware at all unless you want to add a thumb screw in the back for security. The tempered glass is rimmed with case matching white trim and helps hide fingerprints where you might actually be handling this panel the most frequently. The rear panel uses the same attachment mechanism and has a thick layer of sound dampening foam that, as with most Fractal cases, performs excellently. With all the fans running right now, I don't know if my mic, which is just positioned at a frame right above my head, is even picking up any ambient noise at all. You guys can judge for yourself. That should do it. Building this demo system inside the S2 was, as we would expect from Fractal Design at this point, a completely pain-free experience. All the fans are being run off of the fan hub, there's plenty of room up top and down below for even my meaty paws to run wires and connect things up, and all the grommets line up in spots that you need them to. A+ job all around from the ladies and dudes in Sweden. So I guess that wraps up another completely unexciting review of a Fractal Design case. Seriously guys, maybe next time screw something up so the video can be more interesting. We'll talk about it. The Fractal Design Define S2 is a fantastic follow-up to last year's Case of the Year Define R6 and makes some subtle but significant design changes to empower custom water coolers and anyone who just wants a little more operating space. At this price point, there's not much out right now that competes with the S2 at all, and it's definitely BPS Customs recommended. So let me know down below in the comments what you guys think of the latest from Fractal. Also, don't forget to get subscribed to the channel if you're not already. Click some of those links down below to check out the new merchandise store. And as always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.